All right, so we can start off. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, good whatever, depending on where you are in the geographies that are this continent of ours. Welcome to today's webinar session, in which we are actually going to focus on one very critical element that all of us as nurses, whether in practice or in academy, are always talking about, and that's the issue around publication. So the webinar session today, the title is Prevention of Predatory Journals and Strategies for Publication. To take us through this session, our guest speaker is Dr. Peggy Chinn. And before I read through her brief bio, I want to thank all of us for making the time to join us. I can already see from the list of attendees, we have faculty, we have our staff, we have our master's students, we have people from our sister institutions that in practice. So we really are grateful for the time you spent and to come and attend this session. So without further ado, allow me to introduce Dr. Peggy to all of us. So Dr. Peggy is a professor emerita of nursing at the University of Connecticut. Her BSc in nursing is from University of Hawaii, and she has a master's and PhD degrees from University of Utah. She's the editor of Advances in Nursing Science, and she has spoken many places and has also authored many books and journal articles on nursing theory, feminism and nursing, and also the art of nursing, nursing education, and the LGBTQ health. She is the co-founder and web manager of Lavender Health and several local community groups. She blogs regularly on her own blog, that is peggychin.com, the Peace and Power blog, as well as on blogs for Advances in Nursing Science and the Nurse Manifest project. She currently teaches doctoral level courses using hybrid methods for the University of Connecticut, Florida, Atlantic University, and at the Louisiana State University. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Dr. Peggy Chinn, who is going to be our moderator for this session, our speaker for this session. And I'd like to encourage all of us to use the chat function to please ask any questions, to sort of make any comments, and we will answer any questions at the end. So just to ensure we have a two-way, please make use of that chat, whatever in your webinar session. So over to you, Dr. Peggy. You're welcome. Thank you for making the time.
Thank you very much, Dr. Eunice. I'm really delighted to be here today and to share this time with you. And I do encourage you to also enter questions or comments in the chat, and we will talk about them later. And I also might mention just briefly, I have another website that wasn't mentioned because it's quite new, nursology.net. And that is a news website that provides an overview of nursing theories from the very beginning. We have about 60 nursing theories posted there, plus links to journals and books and activities. And we have exemplars of how people use nursing theory in practice. So I hope you will take the time to visit that website as well. So I'm going to share my screen to start this presentation. Okay, everybody can see the screen okay?
Yes, we can see the screen. Please
okay,
proceed.
Thank you. Okay, wonderful, thank you. I'm going to be talking about avoiding the trap of dishonest publishers, which is also known as predatory publishers. And there are groups of public publishers that are borderline. They are working really hard to get up to speed to all of the standards of quality, but they haven't quite gotten there yet. So we'll talk about all of these alternatives. One of the things that has given rise to this is the whole ease of actually publishing and distributing any kind of fake news or fake information. And so not only in journal publishing, but in looking at news or other things, it's very important to be skeptical about some of the things that you find and to be able to verify that it really is legitimate. And so today, we will talk about how to distinguish what is a credible, reliable journal and publisher, and then what is not so credible and actually to be avoided. One of the things that is kind of invites people into this realm is that it's so easy to share what you find, and thinking that it's okay, and it gets shared on social media with your friends without any kind of, there's no break other than the person who's sharing to say, stop, wait a minute, let me see if this is good before I share it. And that's one of the things that is interesting here. The other thing is that people label what is fake with things that they don't agree with. I don't like that, so I'm just going to pretend that it's not true. And so that's also something that is a trend worldwide right now. The other thing that we need to be aware of is that this kind of thing is hardly new. What is new is the propensity or the inclination for large segments of society, for many people, to believe things that are clearly untrue. Fake scientists is also part of this. And this happens when somebody is a fake reviewer. There is a thing going on where authors will recommend a reviewer to a publisher, and it's just a fake name for themselves, so they get to review their own manuscript and give it a rave review without being a real reviewer. And then the other thing that is really difficult is the practice of putting many authors onto a paper, and often that is conveys a kind of signal, which may not be true, that because there are so many authors involved with this manuscript or this article, it must be okay. But basically, that's one of the tactics that people use to pass their work as good, as true, or having validity, is that many people are involved, and it really there's only one person involved, and all of the other names are fake. This kind of thing is used to game scientific metrics. In other words, people are concerned about the impact factor, and there's a lot of fake impact factor things out there, but they use it to try to get a better impact factor. And this is one reason that a lot of people object to the whole movement toward impact factor and the other metrics or measures that people are using to try to make the work look credible. This is an example of another kind of fake thing, fake institute, where people set up something that looks real and it really isn't, and call it an institute. And one of the things that we are finding, actually we're doing some research on this right now, is how many people get drawn into publishing in fake academic journals or low quality or dishonest journals. And many people who are credible researchers or scholars do get drawn into this. So it's really important to be able to discern the difference between what is real and what is not. The other thing to notice is the huge number of how fast this trend of predatory publishers or dishonest publishers has grown, just from, for example, 2011, when they knew of 18, to 2017, which was over 1,000 worldwide. And these numbers are not current because people stopped counting. It has become so widespread that it's no longer really useful to try to count. I guess if the number of dishonest publishers starts to decrease, people will get interested in counting again to be able to show that these operations are no longer able to be sustained. And we will talk a little bit about what sustains them and makes them grow and continue to go as we go along. This is a link. By the way, I've shared the link to these slides, and all of my slides have links like this, a link to the New York Times article from 2016, which explains a little bit about how things look like they are the real thing and what people use to try to pass themselves off. And one of the things that in this title, that in this little illustration, I was skeptical, but it was so accurate. Somebody might look at something and say, well, I agree with this. It must be accurate. Even though I'm kind of skeptical about it, then I'm going to just go ahead and act as if it's okay. So what do we have to do to be able to determine what is real and what is fake? Basically, the idea is to think like a scientist. We have to be skeptical about what we see, even if it looks like something is real or it's been recommended to us by somebody we trust. We still have to be skeptical. We have to use our curiosity to really look into it and look beyond the surface or what appears on the surface. We have to be critical, questioning everything that is that comes to our attention as perhaps something that we should be skeptical about. And then it's important to be connected to your colleagues and work together to kind of explore a situation when you come up with it, because other people will see something that you don't. And so if you work together with people, you'll be able to have a better understanding of what you're looking at. This quote, I won't read through it. You can look at it later, but what really sustains this trend is money. And the fact that the internet has made it possible for dishonest people to make money by being on the internet and to promote all sorts of dishonest practices. And then the other thing is the public's, excuse me, the public's hunger for free information. And so the dishonest publishers have taken advantage of that by setting up an income stream that they receive money from the authors instead of from the people who are reading, the subscribers. And so readers think that this information is free, so it must be, I can get to it, so I'll go ahead and look at it and use it, and without looking at whether or not the source is really credible. So the traditional method of subscription, where if you want to read something, you have to subscribe, even to newspapers or to magazines, is something that the internet kind of gave people like this little carrot to say, oh, you really don't have to pay for this. You can just read it. And so but what happens when that shifts is that the publisher is catering to what somebody who has written something wants to put out there rather than to the reader. If I'm paying for a subscription to a magazine, then I'm supporting that magazine and I'm giving it the support that I have. And so the publisher will be interested in knowing, what do you want to read? Is this important to my readers? And when people are not paying for a subscription, then the publishers no longer have that incentive to care about the quality of what they're offering to the readers. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the fact that just because it's free doesn't mean it might be fake, because there's a lot of free stuff out there that is in journals as well that is really credible. So we're going to look at what the difference is there. So what are the costs of publishing, and are they worth, I need to get this out of the way here. Are they worth it? So there are, one of the things that I've been talking about a little bit is who pays. It really costs money, even if you put something up on the internet to get it up there. And so who pays for that is the really important question that we have to ask. When the internet came about and people were able to put content on the web, even credible publishers who have put their content on the web have found that advertisers no longer want to pay for advertising like they did if they were advertising in a print journal, because they are not able to really track as easily whether their investment in that ad was worth it or not. And institutional subscribers, meaning libraries, were having to pay for subscriptions, but now that it's available on the web freely to everybody, then libraries came under pressure to either stop subscribing or to find other ways to support what they are providing to the public. I don't know what's happened here. There. So what do reputable publishers do? This is a link to an article on the blog, The Scholarly Kitchen, which is the publication of the Society of Scholarly Publishers. And this blog post lists specifically 102 things that publishers do to maintain the credibility of their journal or to get it out there. But the main thing is that they support and maintain the integrity of the editorial role, the peer review process, and adequate corroboration of facts. The publisher is involved in making sure that what they are putting out there is really adequate and true and accurate. And in medical journals, in health journals, in nursing journals, the accuracy of facts that are put out there is just so very important, because we use what we find in journals to guide practice. And sometimes this is a life or death matter. For example, facts about certain drugs or certain procedures could be misleading. And if we follow the facts that are not accurate, it could have really devastating effects on our practice. The other thing that credible publishers make sure about is that the ethics of whatever they publish is sound. That if they publish a study that involves human subjects, that the study has followed adequate human rights guidelines to assure that they have not broken any human rights standards or guidelines. And then there's also the editorial roles. There's the publisher who makes sure that the journal gets out there, and then the editor of the journal that is responsible for the process of making sure that anything that they send in to be published is adequate and sound. And editorial roles have to be free from conflicts of interest. Editors will make bad judgments if they have a conflict of interest or feel like that they are going to benefit or profit from material that is published in the journal. And the publishers assure that editors do not have that incentive. What do reputable editors do? This is a book, it's an ebook, so it's available to download, and it's available at a very reasonable cost online. It's written by Leslie Nichol and myself, and it goes through in great detail what editors actually do and what the job of the editor is all about. But the most important things for readers or for potential authors to know about this is that editors establish the mission of the journal or the news source in service of the discipline and the public. Credible editors are interested in the quality of what they are putting in the journal and the accuracy and the believability of it. And they are relentless in making sure that those standards are met. And in order to do that, they oversee a competent expert vetting of content, which we know of as peer review. And peer reviewers have to be free from conflicts of interest. In other words, they are not paid to review articles. They are contributing their time and their judgment to be able to say this manuscript that somebody has submitted for publication is sound, or there are problems with it and the author needs to make changes, or the peer reviewer can recommend that this is not adequate to be published. And there's a lot of controversy about this process, but to date, nobody has found a more satisfactory way. There's different forms of peer review, but nobody has found a satisfactory way to assure that the content of a journal is sound to the extent that peer review does. It's not perfect, but it is the best we have been able to come up with at this point. And this is a link to where you can go to the web and find this book if you're interested. It's really written for editors, but if you're interested in even serving as a peer reviewer, it's a handy resource to have on hand. So there are a number of different online delivery models. The three that are here in green are credible, and the one that is in pink is what we're really focusing on today, is how to determine the difference between these green models and the pink one. Open access is a business model that uses author processing charges in place of subscription fees. And this is even though there's disadvantages that I just mentioned earlier in terms of whose interest is being served, it is a credible way to get information out there. But it does imply that the author has paid a processing charge in order to be able to publish the material. Credible open access journal publishers don't charge authors to submit their manuscripts, so people don't pay anything unless the manuscript is accepted for publication. And a credible publisher will be really clear up front. If your article is accepted, there will be an author processing charge, and this is how much it is going to be. Free access is different from open access. Publishers who otherwise have their material behind a paywall, meaning people have to subscribe or pay a fee to get an article, publishers will often make something free for a period of time as a marketing tool for that period of time. So in other words, we do this with Advances in Nursing Science. We will make every article that is published in an issue free to download for a period of time when it is being featured on the website. And so if you're interested in that article and you happen to look at it at the time that it's featured, you can download the article at no cost to you. But that is very different from free, meaning predatory. And so if you know that the journal that you're looking at is offering a free article and it's a credible journal, it's okay. Then public access is the meeting the requirement of a funding agency that says, if you publish material from this research that we have funded for you to be able to do, then because those funds are coming from a public source like tax dollars, we want it to be free to the public. The public has actually paid for it because they paid for you to do the research. And so the results of that research need to be made available to the public. And so that governments make this requirement often if they are funding research. Sometimes even private foundations will make this requirement. Sometimes they say that we'll let the publisher make the profit that they deserve to make to pay for the publication process for a period of time, which is called an embargo period. So they'll say, you can keep it behind the paywall, the subscription fee, for 9 months, for 12 months, for however long. But after that, the publisher has to release it to the public. And that's a very common practice for governments who have paid to sponsor the research, which satisfies the interests of the publisher as well as the public. And then the pay to publish is a predatory practice, which uses the article processing fee for personal gain. In other words, they are using this article processing fee to make money off of the authors rather than to actually assure that there is a credible and sound publishing process that is actually happening in the process. So what are the signs of credibility? Let's look at that first before we get into the signs of not so credible. So open access publishing, it is a business model. It's a cost shift from reader to author. It's intended to increase access of scientists and the public to current scientific findings, which scientists are very interested in making their work available so that other researchers and the public can get the information that is needed without having to pay for it. It is subject to copyright and Creative Commons protection, just as anything would be in a subscription journal. But open access publishing is not free. It's not free, really. The publishers are paying quite a bit of money to be able to do it. If they are a credible journal, they're still maintaining all of the practices that cost them money to make sure that the information is credible. It's not available for unrestricted distribution. In other words, it still has a copyright on it. And then the Creative Commons is a method that has been developed so that for copyrighted material, if you say this is copyrighted, but I'll give you permission to use it as long as you don't use it for certain purposes. And so that's what the license, the Creative Commons protection is. It really puts a notice up on the website that this is copyrighted, but you have to use it only in these ways. If you're going to use it, if you want to make money off of this material, you still have to get permission. You can't just use this material for free. And then it is not in itself less valuable or rigorous than paper. It's credible open access publishing is equally valuable, and it is equally credible to what has been published in paper. And at the same time, it's not a simple replication of paper. One of the things that open access online publishing makes possible is that you can embed links to other material. Journals like ANS now have what we call supplementary digital content, SDC. So there's a link maybe to a video or a link to a illustration or a set of slides or something, a demonstration that is embedded in the article. That you can't have that with paper. So the open access distribution models, the traditional model is that subscribers pay to have unrestricted access to the content. There's the gold model where the author pays an author processing charge, but substitutes for subscription fees, and the article is immediately available to everyone. The platinum model is the publisher obtains grant, sponsor, or donor to cover the cost with little or no author fee. So instead of the author paying the author processing charge, the grant or the donor or sponsor of the project pays the fee. Then there is the green model, where publishers give a green light to authors to self-archive their pre-publication manuscript in an open repository. This means that they are saying, we're accepting this article for publication, but if you want to make this content available at no cost to the public before it is actually published or even after it's published, you can put that same manuscript that you submitted to us onto any social media site or open repository that you want to. So you're putting your manuscript out there, but not the PDF copy of the copy edited and the version that actually is published in the journal, which can make a difference because in a credible journal, the copy editors will catch errors in your citations. They'll check your language and your grammar and punctuation and those sorts of things. They ask questions if something in the manuscript isn't clear. Sometimes even a sentence, they will say the sentence doesn't make sense. So can you clarify it before we put it into print? So the manuscript won't have the benefit of all of that pre-publication work, but it still gets the basic information out to the public. A hybrid model, which is what many of the journals like ANS that for years have been paper only, subscription journals have started to use a combination of that traditional and gold access models, so that, for example, every author that publishes an article in ANS, once we accept the article, we give the author the option of paying the author processing fee in order to make their article open access permanently. If they don't wish to or don't need to have that open access option, then there's no fee to publish. We go ahead and publish as we always have published their work. And then delayed open access is when the publisher provides open access for no additional fee after an embargo period of 6 to 12 months. So open access benefits, it provides rapid access immediately to all scholars who might not otherwise find and build on important new scientific findings. And in disciplines where things are so crucial for people to find out, like what we've all been through with the COVID pandemic, where in order to get vaccines developed that were effective and safe to use, all of the different researchers who were working on these vaccines needed to know what other researchers were finding out about those vaccines really quickly. And so the only way for that to happen would be for them to have either a personal private network, which is much too cumbersome for individuals to deal with, or access to findings that are can be posted on the web so that other people can find it and use it right away. It provides access to the tax-paying public without the barrier of cost. So, and this is particularly important for any research that has been paid for by a government agency. And then it increases the author's range of influence by making their work widely accessible worldwide and not limited to the journal subscribers or to academic libraries only. The challenges, these are not really problems, but they are the challenges that people have to be aware of. Monetary transactions from authors to publishers creates a pay-to-play culture where authors expect, oh, I can get whatever I write published, whether it's good or not, if I just pay the publisher to publish it. And that is actually what happens with disreputable publishers. But for credible publishers, just paying the money will not get it published. It has to be determined to be good content and credible content. It does shift, I've mentioned this already, from a reader-centric model to an author-centric model, which calls into question whose interest is being served here. And there's widespread confusion about open access. And so what is absolutely necessary is that we double our efforts to educate and heighten awareness of the pitfalls, which is really why this session is so important today, because this is a really confusing landscape, and it's not easy to figure out what really you need to understand about it. And it does open the door for predatory practices. So the key to protecting against this is editorial integrity, which is the process that assures a sound approach to the vetting of content to peer review. It provides protection against fake science that harms the public, which peer review and editorial review makes possible to just determine that before the material gets out there to the public, where they would have a harder time determining, is this really good content or is it not? It's assurance to the scientific community that what is published is a sound basis on which to build future research. And it's an assurance to the public that what is published is in the human interest, best in the human interest in practice. In other words, protecting human beings and ethics and safety, really. So what is editorial integrity? It uses iron wall practices to protect against commercial and personal influence on editorial content. And even though this iron wall might have a few cracks in it from time to time, this is one of the most important aspects of having an editorial review and a peer review. All people who are involved in the selection and production of editorial content are fully qualified and adhere to the COPE codes of content. COPE is the Committee on Publishing Ethics. And you can go to this website. It's a really wonderful resource for all sorts of ethical issues in publishing, including authorship and all dilemmas that come up in the preparation of conduct of research studies and publishing. It assures that the content has been adequately peer reviewed by experts in the field. So one of the things that has become more common is that even after material gets published, sometimes we're finding out that, well, this really didn't meet the standards that it needed to meet, so the journal retracts it or takes it back. This is a really flawed process, but it's the best that we can have. And there's actually a website, Retraction Watch, who watches all of the different retraction policy publications, and has had a lot of influence on how we post if an article is retracted. If it's online, how do we make sure that people in the future know that it has been retracted, because it's still available online? So these are the three hallmarks of integrity: transparency, permanence, and replicability. It's kind of like the TPR of publishing. Transparency means that the journal gives thorough information about what their editorial practices are, and for all stages of publication. So you should be able to go to the journal's website and see a detailed description of their editorial practices. What do they require for what is submitted to the journal? What do they require for the peer review process? And what are the standards used to determine what material that has been submitted will be published and what will not? Another feature is that they provide permanence. They assure the preservation and discoverability of the journal content. They will have a digital object identifier, which is a permanent link to the content, but also they have an archive that you can go and see all of anything that has been published by that journal since the beginning for many journals, because they have digitized all of the content, and they preserve that. They place it on a server with backup capability, with all sorts of assurances that if the server goes down, here's what we will do to get it back up online immediately. And they will make sure that that is permanent, that it will not go away. And all of their claims are consistent with external sources. So the journal performance, the editorial staff, the qualifications. If you see that somebody listed as an editor of a journal, for example, and you can't confirm that that person is who the journal claims that they are, then there's something wrong. You need to be able to go and find information about the editor or any other claims related to the journal on another source, so that you are able to replicate what the journal has told you is true. And then the signs of dishonest or deceptive publishing. They have very questionable business practices. They use the gold open access model to where the author pays. They have aggressive methods to lure authors in, emails that say, oh, you're such a wonderful, brilliant author, please publish something in our journal. They promise rapid review and rapid publication. There's no such thing as rapid review. If you are a reviewer and you suddenly have a request from an editor to review this manuscript that's been submitted, you have a million other things that you already had planned to do for that day, and you're not going to pick up an article that an editor sends you and just immediately review it. You need to build in the time for that review into your schedule to be able to do it. And there's also no such thing as rapid publication. Once your article is accepted for publication, the copy editing process that's so important to make sure that everything that is there is accurate and correct and clear and well presented takes time. And the publisher will also ask you as the author to review what they come up with when they have prepared your article for publication, and that takes time. you get the page proofs of your article back, and then you have to take the time to read through it carefully and make sure that nothing has been inserted in preparing it for publication that you don't want it to be there. You should be able to find out exactly where the publisher is located, where the editor is located. With questionable business practices, you will find that that's really hard to determine. Sometimes the editor is even non-existent. It's a fake name. They mimic legitimate journal names and logos and so forth to create confusion. And they develop legitimate appearing websites, but it really doesn't take long to dig into the website and find out that this really is not a legitimate website. This is one of the most hilarious recruitment methods. An example, it's an email to Leslie Nichol, author of a recent ANS article, and the journal Energies writes to her to say that they want her to now publish in their special issue on biodiesel for application in diesel engines. And her article was on the integrity of databases for literature sources in nursing. Then we're kind of getting close to when we need to turn to the chat questions. So I'm going to kind of scan through this. They mystify things. They make it hard to, you can't find information about how to prepare your manuscript. Journal titles are misleading. Excuse me. They show fake impact factors. Sometimes the editorial board members don't even know that they are on there. Anytime you see an honorary editor-in-chief, there is really no such thing in credible journals. Then I have several examples here about these fake things that you can go through and you see the sites. Examples of how discredible publishers kind of try to lure people in. And what you need to do is to be able to know who the editor of the conference organizer is. And then what are the guidelines for subscription? And these are the ways to corroborate the information that you find to find out if it is really true. Looking for the permanence, archives, how to determine what journal, if you want to submit, is this a credible journal? The questions to ask. This is a summary of the journal metrics, impact factor being the most famous, but these are the other sources that you can look at to find out if they really are following ethical standards. There is there was for a long time, Beale's list was on the web. It's still available and it is being maintained, but it was down for quite a while because Jeffrey Beale, the librarian who kept that list, had to back off from it, but it has been picked up by other people. The Cabell's list is a good one, but libraries have to pay big fees to access it. So the list, they're both their white list and their black list. We don't like those terms anymore, but Cabell's has kept lists of credible journals and lists of discreditable journals. The thing to do is to really depend on vetted white lists or lists of credible journals. The Nursing Journals Directory is a list of all of the journals that are credible and they have been vetted, and then in nursing, and then a larger cross-disciplinary directory of open access journals. And you can go here to find out if you find an open access journal, is it credible? If it's on that list, it's okay. Then this is a website that I really love, that if you're wanting to follow practices of publishing It's a fun and very informative blog to follow. And then the International Academy of Nursing Editors, who sponsors the Nursing Journals Directory. And we have statements from nursing journal editors on editorial standards and many other resources. This is a website that kind of guides you through how to check a journal if you find it. And then Nurse, Author, and Editor has many, it's a free newsletter journal that you can subscribe to, and has regular information about publishing and all of the pitfalls of publishing. And then these are other resources that are available that you really would have to look at the slides and follow the links to go to them. But I hope that if you're interested, you will do that. So let's open for questions and comments.
Thank you so much, Dr. Chinn, for your presence and very informative and experiential account of a very important topic which graduate students and alumni and faculty keep confronting in different parts of the world. So for the ease of moderating the question answer, we have our executive officer, Kinza Bhutto, who has jotted down all the questions from the chat as well as from the Q&A. So I will request Kinza to go ahead and moderate. So she will present the question to you, so it's easier for you to answer. So I think we have seen about 6 or 7 questions so far. Go ahead, Kinza, over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Rosina. Thank you, Dr. Chinn. We know how busy you are. We are so grateful that you could take time for sharing your insight, knowledge, and experience in this insightful, interesting session. In the interest of time, we will be taking limited questions. I'll start with the first question. The first question is, with the increasing trend of multidisciplinary grants and publication, the nursing scholars and scientists are inclined to publish in journals outside of nursing discipline. How is it impacting knowledge development in nursing discipline, and how can we address this problem?
That's an excellent question. One of the things that it is important to publish in nursing journals if you're interested in furthering the knowledge of the discipline. There's nothing wrong with also publishing in non-nursing journals, but the tendency of nurses to want to publish in other journals is really reflective of our own devaluing of our own discipline and wanting to appear more sophisticated or more whatever by being associated with a medical journal in particular. So make sure that you get your work published in nursing journals. It's very important, and cite nursing journals. We have done several studies around citations recently, and we're finding that when there is an adequate nursing source, often authors don't look at the nursing source, they go to sources in other disciplines.
Thank you. We will move on to the next question, which is there any regulatory authority or association where reports can be made against such journals? Is there any law to stop such unethical or illegal practices?
No, no, there's not. And probably there never can be any laws or policies. For one thing, it's international. And for another, there's money involved. And, you know, people will find a way to skirt around laws and policies if they think they can make money off of it. And that's exactly what the dishonest publishers are trying to do.
So the next question also related to that. If a graduate student unknowingly publishes in a predatory journal and the supervisor and the student gets to know later, how can they withdraw, and are there any legal implications for that?
This is one of the biggest problems with getting drawn into this. You cannot get it get them to withdraw it. They will not do that. We've had instances of somebody unknowingly tries to publish in a predatory journal. They do accept it, and they've said, we're going to have to, you'll have to pay us $3,000, but then they publish it anyway. So the author has contacted the publisher and say, I did not pay the $3,000, so I want you to take it down. And they say, well, you have to pay us the $3,000 if you want us to take it down. And even people who have taken legal action have hired a lawyer, tried to get them to withdraw it. They just won't do it. There's just no way for them to do it. Things on the web tend to be permanent in some way, not permanent in terms of being able to discover it, but they, you can dig around and find stuff that really should have been taken down or ended. So just the only thing to do to protect yourself is to be very careful.
That's an eye opener. The next question is, can the authors resubmit their scholarly work in other credible journals?
I'm sorry, repeat the question, please.
Can the authors, can they resubmit their work in other credible journals?
Can authors?
Can they resubmit their work in other credible journals?
No, that's another one of the biggest problems. You can't. A credible journal will not publish anything that has been previously published, even if it's been published in a disreputable journal. So basically, you're stuck. We did work with an author in Canada not long ago that this happened to. She didn't even really realize what she was doing. She submitted it to a predatory journal and they published it without her permission or anything. She didn't even know it had been published. And then she happened to find out about it. And she contacted us to find out, us being Leslie Nichol and myself, if she could now submit it to a credible journal, because the answer is just no, you can't.
The next question is there any database for identifying predatory journals locally or internationally? Are there any databases?
No, that's another problem. You just have to know enough to do the exploration yourself to determine. And by yourself, your best friend is your librarian. They know what is happening with this, but other colleagues, ask your colleagues who are in the same field as you are what they think about this journal, and together you can probably figure it out.
Another interesting question. It's difficult to publish data collected on self-developed questionnaires in a reputed journal. So how do we publish them? She refers to a research tool that has only content validity calculated but lacks reliability and face validity.
I'm not sure. I mean, that's a really complex question. Maybe the thing to do would be to send me an email and let me respond on email. Can we do that?
Yeah, we can surely do that. Thank you so much. And the last question, if the DOI number is one of the identification of a journal, so how do we handle the content if it's published before 2008 when there was no concept of DOI?
I'm sorry, there's no DOI?
Yeah, so how do we, so it's, if the DOI number is the identification of a journal, so how do we handle the content if it's published before the year 2008 when there was no concept of DOI?
Oh, you have to ask your librarian to help you find it. And actually, publishers can retroactively get DOIs for all of the content. So if a publisher, hasn't gotten it, then contact the editor to try to find out, can you get a DOI? Because they can go back and get DOIs for articles that were published years ago.
Thank you so much, Professor Chinn, for taking out time once again. There have been many questions, and so we shortlisted few, and it's very kind of you to answer them. We'll be sharing your email address for those who wish to email you for other
Yes.
questions in detail. Thank you so much.
Yes.
I'll hand it over to Dr. Rosina now.
Thank you, Kinza. So I see there are about 7 more questions. So maybe we will combine them, and Dr. Chinn, we will send it to you. So in one go, when you give the response of those 7
Yes.
or 10 questions,
Yes,
we can
that
then
would be fun.
circulate to the participants who have registered with us for this.
Great.
So in the interest of time which people have blocked, and I know that you have pulled very early morning to accommodate Africa and Pakistan. So I really appreciate that during retirement time, we should not cause this crime to you
Well,
to be this early morning. So you have been very generous and kind with your time.
well,
And we are so delighted that Trustee Afaf has made this connection with
yes.
us and with us in Pakistan, and
Yes.
brought you on our doorsteps on the Zoom, because this is like a dream come true to me. When in 1997, I was doing my PhD from University of Minnesota. I studied all your books when theory development, theory formation was coming up, and you were in the forefront to develop the nursing theory and the debate around knowledge development, PhD programs, and your feminist approach, that how the vulnerable group can be also included into this entire dialogue. And I took a course with Margaret Newman,
Oh,
and she often referred to you as well. She was my faculty for the nursing theory. So
oh,
we have never met in person, but after so many years, after almost 2 decades, you are a scholar and a theorist and a scientist who has come out of the book in front of me. And one day, hopefully, we can meet in person as well. So
oh,
I really appreciate. And currently, one of our faculty is doing her PhD from University of Wisconsin, and she's studying your current book for a nursing theory
oh,
in her
wonderful,
PhD.
wonderful. I'm just delighted to have met you and to be part of this, and I'll be glad to respond to anything on the emails.
Sure. And I'm very happy and thankful to all those who attended and participated. There were about 70 participants on our chat and Q&A, and about 20 plus on the direct web link, through the web link, and who could not put the questions, and they could do that. So we would like to appreciate your time and knowledge sharing. This is a way of caring for the low middle income countries and countries who are right now developing the PhD programs for nursing in
Wonderful.
their own discipline. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And best wishes to everyone, and hope that we maintain our connection.
We will for some other topics, because you have done so much work. This was only one of the topic we started with, and you've given us very good ideas. And we will keep in touch with you.
Great.
Thank you.
And
You have a good day.
please do share the link to the slides with everybody.
Yes, yes, we will do that.
Okay, great.
Thank you, Sam. Many faculty members and graduate students are writing thank you notes in chat. So
Great.
thank you for your time.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Have a good day.
You too.